All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Meat Not Milk Metaphysical Bible Study. I was doing my morning study and I'm in John chapter 5. And that is the story of the man who is by the pool with five porches and is lying on his mat. And there's some very powerful metaphysical understandings that I got, some divine downloads that I got that I wanted to get on here and quickly share with you. For those of you who don't know, my name is Julian Gordon. I created Meat Not Milk Metaphysical Bible Study. This is the deepest Bible study that I believe exists. What it means, meta means to go beyond, and physical means beyond the literal or the physical interpretation of the Bible. We know that the Bible is packed with allegories, metaphors, similes, parables. And in order to unlock the secrets of the Bible, we have to be able to decode those things. So some people think that the Bible is 100% literal. Some people think that it is literary. Some people think that it's 100% history. Some people believe that it is 100% story. Regardless of what you believe, there are some very deep, profound insights in this book. And this is why I love it so much. And so this is what we are seeking to understand so that we can apply these principles to our lives. The reason it's called the living word is because even if these stories literally took place thousands of years ago, or whether or not they are myth, right? It doesn't matter as long as we are able to apply those principles to today. So if a miracle happens in the Bible, what does that mean for you today? And how do you apply that to your life today? This is really what makes it a living word, given that these are the struggles that we as spiritual beings having a human experience are having here on earth today. These are human struggles, regardless of the time. This is why you don't see many dates or any dates actually in the Bible. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but have you ever seen a date in the Bible? There they talk about Monday, they talk about the first day of the week, they talk about festivals and feasts and things of that nature, but there aren't any dates in the Bible. And of course there have been different types of calendars that have been created and changed, right, from the Gregorian calendar to the Julian calendar, which is my name, right? So we've had all kinds of different calendars, so there aren't any dates in the Bible. And I think that's very telling, because what this is saying is that these stories, these allegories, these parables, these myths, or historical events, how do they apply to our life today, regardless of the time that they may have occurred, right? So, what we're going to get into today is John chapter 5, 1 through 9. I read that this morning and it was very, very powerful. And I got some deep insights and downloads, divine downloads that I wanted to share with you. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, you can actually go to meatnotmilk.com. You can go to meatnotmilk.com and join us there. That will get you notified about when I do streams like this and jump on. We will have a more consistent schedule coming forth soon. So stay tuned for that. Scripture says, study to show thyself approved. And right now, what I see is a lot of people are going to church, but they aren't actually reading the text for themselves. And the reality is if you've been a quote unquote Christian for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and you haven't read the Bible cover to cover, you have to question how devoted you are to actually living in alignment with the principles that that particular belief system projects out into the world. How do you even know what the principles are if you haven't read the instruction manual in the book? And so that's really my challenge to everyone. My challenge to everyone. And even if you've left Christianity, what I tell people is don't throw out the Bible with the baptism water. Yes, you may have left the dogma, you may have left the doctrine, you may have left the rules and the rituals and the religion, but that book, the reason it's lived and continues to expand over 2,000 years, right? That it's been here in our lives is because there is deep truth, universal truth in this book. And that's what we want to extract. All right. So, what's going on, family? It's good to see you all here. So, let's get it in. Get out your Bible if you have one. I know some of you are on the road right now. I just popped out and just wanted to share this before I get into my day. I read every single morning, at least a chapter every single morning, and this is what I was reading this morning. So we're not going to go through all of chapter 5. We're going to focus on chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. And again, this is the man at the pool. All right. So I'm going to read it and then we're going to decode it. All right. So After there was a feast, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. I want to underline went up. Okay. So throughout the Gospels, you're going to see Jesus went up, Jesus went down, Jesus went up. And so this is a representation of the fluidity and the frequency of this character called Christ all throughout the gospel, right? So you're going to see up and down and up and down and up and down. And that is indicative of how our life actually flows. It flows up and down. Today, I hope you're up, but some days you may be down. And so you're going to see this, and that's not a coincidence. It's actually very intentional when you see this up and down nature throughout the Bible, okay, throughout the Gospels. So after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Verse 2, now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. So when we decode the stories, especially the stories all throughout the Bible, we want to look up the Hebrew meaning or the Aramaic meaning or the Greek meaning of the people, places, and some of the nouns, right? So anytime you see something capitalized, you want to actually go online or into into a book and actually get what is the meaning of that person's name. What is the actual meaning of that place? So Bethesda, anytime you see Bethlehem, Bethesda, Bethpage, right? That means house. Okay. Beth means house. So Bethesda means house of mercy or house of grace. These things give you insight into what the story is actually about. This is part of the reason I'm led to believe that a lot of these stories are actual stories as opposed to history, because you'll find that the names of the characters and the places actually shape and are key to the actual story, right? You'll find that the names of the people and the places are actually keys to unlock the true meaning of that actual story, right? And so we are at the tongue Bethesda having 5 porches. Now, 5 porches, this is the number, and there's a lot of numbers in the Bible. There's a lot of numbers in the Bible, right? And a lot of these numbers have significance. I don't know if you know, but I think it's Numbers 2:9. You will find that the tribe of Judah is numbered as the speed of light in miles per second. In Numbers 2:9, the tribe of Judah is numbered 184,600. 184,600. That is the actual speed of light in miles per second. But it was written, the speed of light in miles per second wasn't measured until like the 700s, I believe, or I think it was the 700s. So this number of the speed of light in miles per second was actually in the Bible thousands of years before it was actually measured by man. So numbers in the Bible have significance. Numbers in the Bible have significance. So when you think about 5 porches, what do we have 5 of? Where else do you hear the number 5, right? I hear the number 5 and I think of the 5 senses, right? And this is really key for me as a metaphysician, right? Meaning somebody who looks at the unseen, who goes beyond the literal, who goes beyond the surface. I think of the 5 senses, right? And that's going to be key, because the 5 senses are what hold up our physical reality. We think that the outer world is our actual reality. This is what we call reality. But if you read the Gospels enough and you read the message of Jesus, he will speak to you and actually show you that your inner world is where the reality happens and the outer world is just a projection. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. It is done unto you as you believe. So it's actually your inner that actually reflects your outer. And so our 5 senses are the 5 porches in my interpretation. I'm saying that my interpretation is 100% true. Based on your life experiences and your relationship with the Creator, you may get a different perspective and divine download, and I would love to hear that in the comments. But in my interpretation, my experience, and how I was taught to read, and how God communicates through me, the 5 porches represent our 5 senses, which uphold our physical reality. Okay? The 5 porches represent our 5 senses that uphold our physical reality. Okay? So keep that in mind. Verse 3, In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. So four types of people were listed here. Four types of people were listed here, right? And so what does this mean? If we are looking at this as a way to think about our minds, right? Then what would an impotent thought be? In chat, let me know, what do you think an impotent thought would be? What is impotence? Impotence is the inability to produce. It's an unproductive thought, right? So if we're trying to translate this story to our lives, an impotent being or impotent character would mean an unproductive thought. See, a lot of the characters, there's over 3,000 characters in the Bible. A lot of the characters represent characteristics inside of ourselves. A lot of the characters represent characteristics inside of ourselves. Judas represents self-sabotage. Peter represents self-denial. Jesus represents, or Yeshua represents, our highest self. We are meant to have the mind of Christ. We are meant to operate from our highest, most godlike state. And even Yeshua says in John 10:34, which doesn't get read in church on Sundays, "Is not written in your law, I have said ye are gods." So a lot of the characters in the Bible represent characteristics in ourselves. Lot's wife looking back, that represents our regret or our longing for comfort in the old, right? So when you start to see the characters as characteristics inside yourself, it really unlocks and opens up what this text actually means for you today, what it actually means for you today. So in one translation of the Bible, it is listed not as impotent thoughts, but invalid. They called him an invalid. Now in English, what do we say invalid? We say invalid. So if we're talking about this as thought form, then an invalid would be an invalid thought, a thought that is in error. And we know that when we are in error or we are missing the mark, we are what? We are sinning. Sinning means to miss the mark. So one translation has it listed as invalid, invalid, right? We call them invalid, but if we're translating this to how our mind actually works, and we're looking at this text as a guide for how our inner world actually works, then that would be an invalid thought. So then what would a blind thought be? Okay. Blind thought would be our blind spots where we can't see ourselves, where we can't see the truth that is in front of us. What would a halt thought be? A halt thought would be a thought that is holding you up, that is blocking you from your abundance. Okay. What would a withered thought be? A withered thought would be a thought that is ceasing to flourish or out of season. A withered thought would be a thought that is ceasing to flourish or is out of season. Okay. Waiting for the moving of the water. Now, in my interpretation of the Bible, my metaphysical understanding, water typically represents the subconscious mind. Land typically represents the conscious mind, and sky typically represents the superconscious mind. Okay. So, and if you go back to Genesis, you'll see how the land, water, and sky were formed. I believe it was sky, water, right? So superconscious, which is the God mind, then water, which will be the subconscious. Now, the subconscious submits to the conscious mind. The subconscious runs 95% of our lives, but the conscious mind has executive power over the subconscious mind, allowing it to change and reprogram the subconscious mind. But from a power standpoint, we have the superconscious represented by the sky, we have the subconscious represented by the water, and then we have the conscious, right, which is the land. It is the physical form. And then, of course, there's the unconscious, which is our body, which simply responds to the programming of our conscious and subconscious mind. So waiting for the subconscious mind to shift and heal. Verse 4, for an angel went down. Now, some people say that angels are not, I know when you hear the word angel, you think of a naked baby with a naked white blonde baby with wings. That is all imagery that religion gave you to think about angels. But the way I think about angels is that angels are actually angles of light. Angles of light. This is where you get enlightenment from. It is when you get an epiphany, when you get enlightened, when you get a lightning bolt strike from God that opens you up to a new possibility and reality for your present circumstance. So I interpret angels as angles of light. They're the way divine downloads come to you, a way epiphanies come to you. And if you look at all the angels in the Bible and you look at them and you hear the message, right? I think it's called messenger photons, where messages are translated through light, right? Then you'll start to think about angels in a different way, not the way they're painted in Europe, but in terms of how God actually speaks to us, right? Because the angels are usually speaking and giving some sort of message, right? So, for an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. This is where the song, Wade in the Water, God's gonna trouble the water. That's where this comes from, right? Troubled the water, which really just means moved or stirred up the water. And sometimes we have to be stirred up in our thought, right? To actually have new thought. We have to be shaken up a little bit to have a new settling point, right? Otherwise, when water is still, what happens to water when it is still? When water is still, it becomes swampy. And that's where you get fungi, right? That's where you get algae. That's where you get mosquitoes, right? That's where you get disease. Water is supposed to flow, it's supposed to have a currency, right? It's supposed to flow. But when you are still in mind, that's where all of these negative things start to arise. So the angel went down in a certain season to the pool to trouble or stir up the water. And some of you need to be stirred up in your lives, right? And I hope that this teaching stirs you up and then helps you resettle at a better point in your life. Trouble the water. Whoever then first, after troubling the water, stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease that they had. Okay. So whoever got in the water first, after it was stirred up, right? That's who was healed. But now listen to this. What would have been the secret to cracking this code? Because this man had been, I believe this man had been here, I think in one version of the story, had been here for years, right? I think in one of the other gospels, he had been here for years. It indicates the amount of time that he had been there. Oh, here it is. In verse 5, a certain man was there which had an infirmity 38 years. 38 years, right? We know that it took the Israelites 40 years wandering in the desert to get from Egypt to the promised land. Egypt means bondage, right? Egypt is not the historical Egypt. They tried to demonize Black culture. They tried to demonize African culture by making Egypt connected to the history of Egypt. There's no physical evidence whatsoever of Egyptians enslaving a group of Jews or white folk. There's no history of that whatsoever. Now, the Hyksos ended up conquering Egypt and they enslaved the Egyptians, but it did not happen the other way around. We have historical evidence of the Hyksos coming in and actually ruling Egypt for a period of time, right? But it did not happen the other way around. So Egypt, or Mizraim, means bondage. And the promised land obviously is where we are meant to be. It is the escape from bondage. And that's literally what we are seeking to do here. Egypt also represents the body consciousness, and we're trying to move back to our spiritual consciousness away from the body consciousness, right? So, and a certain man was there which had an infirmity for 38 years. So he had been there for 38 years. But if you had been there for 38 years and you knew that the first person to get into the water was the one who got healed, what would have been the secret to cracking the code? The secret to cracking the code would have been to get in the water before it got stirred up. The secret would have been to get in the water before it actually got stirred up. To be in there, right? Now, if we look at water as a subconscious mind, if you stay in the inner, and stop focusing on the outer experience, when the divine download comes, when the angel comes, when that epiphany comes, you will be ready to actually transform. But if you're only focused on the outer, you're only focused on your infirmity, you're only focused on what's happening outwardly, you're going to miss the opportunity to have your healing, because healing only comes from within. True healing only comes from within. Even throughout the Gospels, when Jesus heals, he didn't say, I made you whole. What did he say? Yeshua, I can't even say he healed. When there was a healing in the Gospels, what did Yeshua say? Your faith has made you whole. Faith is not an external thing. Faith is an unseen substance. It comes from within. It comes from within. Your faith has made you whole. This man had no faith in his ability to be healed for 38 years, so he was making excuses. So verse 6, when Jesus saw him lie, this is very key. And I believe that God is so divine that it can work magically in this way. And even though this word has been translated from, I believe, Aramaic or Greek to English, when Jesus saw him lie, lie means two things in the English dictionary. Lie means to not tell the truth, and lie also means to lay down. But what was this man lying on? When Jesus saw him lie, it didn't say lie on a mat. When Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he said unto him, wilt thou be made whole? Are you willing to even be made whole? I don't know if you actually want to be made whole, because you get so much benefit. There's some sort of payoff that you get from your bondage. There's some sort of payoff that you get from playing victim. Everybody at this pool knows you because you've been playing victim for 38 years. That is your payoff for staying in this situation. And if you were healed, then you would no longer have that payoff. Some of us choose to stay in victim consciousness, right? Some of us choose to stay in victim consciousness because we get a payoff from that. We get sympathy. Oh, it's okay, baby. You get hugs. People give you money, things of that nature. When your abundance in your life, you were meant to have life and have it more abundantly, would be greater if you just let go of victim consciousness. But you think that the payoff that you get from victim consciousness is the greatest that you can get, so you stay in victim consciousness. So when Jesus saw him lie, remember, lie means two things in English: lying down or lying. He was lying about who he truly was. He was lying about who he truly was. He was not a victim. He could have been healed in year one. He could have been healed on day one if he knew who he truly was, but he had been there for 38 years, right? Wilt thou be made whole? There was a blind man in the Bible, and Yeshua asked, what would you have me do? And he immediately said, I want to be able to see. He knew what he wanted. In this case, this man is in such a victim consciousness that he doesn't even know if he wants to be made whole. This is why Yeshua asked him. And in verse 7, you'll see what happens. The impotent man, remember, impotent means unproductive. The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me in the pool, but while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. I have no man to put me in the pool, right? So instead of just saying, yes, I want to be made whole, what does he come with? He comes with an excuse. He is so rooted in his victim consciousness, in his lower nature, in his physical reality, the five porches that uphold the physical reality. He is so rooted in that he doesn't even know if he wants to be made whole. And he goes straight into an excuse of why he's not whole. In life, you are going to use your situation as justification for why you are where you are, right? Which is excuses, or you're going to use it as inspiration to get out of the situation that you were in. And so the pool was a step down. The pool was a step down, right? The pool was a step down. Can you still hear me on Instagram? Can y'all still hear me on Instagram? Instagram, can you hear me? Okay, cool. Perfect. So the pool was a step down. Why? Because the body, right, is the unconscious mind. It just responds to what is happening inside of you. So there are four levels. There's the superconscious, which is the God mind. There's the subconscious, which is the soul or the heart. Then there's the conscious, which is the mental mind, and then there's the body, which is the unconscious. So many of us think that in order to have our healing, we have to heal at the level of the body. If you are dealing with the physical infirmity right now, you think that the healing happens at the physical level, at the unconscious level. No, it is not a step down. And this is why Jesus in verse 8 says, Jesus said unto him, rise, take up thy bed and walk. As above, so below. So if you actually want healing in one of the lower realms, you actually have to elevate upward here. The way a child, God is in divine design. The way a child comes out of the mother's womb is how? In most cases, the child comes out head first. It comes out of darkness head first into the light. So when you are trying to transition from a place of darkness in your life, guess what you have to do? You have to come out head first. Your mind has to lead you out. You don't come out physically, you come out mentally first, and then your mind will follow. Then your body will follow. You come out mentally first, and then your body follows. There's a sequence. So he had been trying to step down and get healed at a lower level. You don't get healed at the lower level, you get healed at the higher level first, and then that translates, because as above, so below, that translates down to the lower levels. Now, are there times where you might need bandages and things of that nature to heal a physical wound? Yes. But you have to also that has to also correspond with how you think about your life going forward. Is that a career-ending injury? You can think you can accept that that's a career-ending injury or not. No, this is not a career-ending injury. Two people have the same injury. One thinks it's a career-ending injury, right? And therefore, that's what manifests, and that slows the healing process. And another person have the same injury, but they think this is not a career-ending injury. I'm going to be back out there in 12 months and be even better. And that's going to accelerate the healing. Are you understanding? Okay. So Jesus said unto him, rise, take up thy bed and walk. So now he's taken up thy bed, right? Now he is standing on top of the lie that he was laying on. He is standing on top of the lie that he was laying on now. Okay. He is now risen, right? So verse 9, and immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was a Sabbath. So I don't care how long you've been in a state of distress, in a state of darkness, in a state of infirmity. When you get into the belief and you see yourself as God sees you, your healing can happen immediately. Your healing is not reflective of how long you've been hurt. The time it takes to heal is not reflective of how long you've been hurt. Your healing can happen instantaneously. But the instantaneous healing starts in the mind, and then it manifests in the body. So when it says she was healed in the woman with the issue of blood, I believe she was healed in the moment mentally, but then again, the physical experience takes a little bit of time to catch up. I believe she was healed mentally based on her belief. Thy faith has made you whole. It is done unto you as you believe. She was healed immediately. And then her body, with the woman with the issue of blood, her body caught up to where her mind was. Verse 10, and the Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, it is on the Sabbath day, is it not lawful for thee to carry thy bed? And he answered them, he that made me whole, the same said unto me, take up thy bed and walk. We know that the Sabbath was made for man. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. It is always appropriate. It is always in season to be doing the work of God. But the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and scribes were so focused on the religious law, just like religion today, that they missed out on what was the most godly thing to do in a given moment. There are 631 laws in the Bible. Nobody can keep up with all of them. The question is, are you upholding the two greatest commandments, which is love thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul, and love thy neighbor as thyself, which also is predicated on you actually loving yourself and then operating from there. Nobody can know all 631 laws. But if you know those two and you use those two to guide you in your decision making every single day, then you will be living in alignment with God. Okay. Yeshua didn't respond to his excuse. He spoke to him based on how God saw him. You are healed. Pick up your mat and walk. God is not responding to your excuses. Excuses just go by. Ask yourself, regardless of what you're going through, how does God see me? Does God see you as unhealed or healed? Did God see you as a sinner or a child of God? Did God see you as a victim or a victor? And if you come back to that question over and over and over again, in any situation that you're in, regardless of what people are saying, or regardless of even what your own mind is thinking, How does the superconscious mind, how does the God mind see me? God sees you as perfect, whole, and complete. All right. I hope that reading blessed you. I read that this morning and just wanted to share that. To get notified about when I go live regarding these divine downloads, just go to meatnotmilk.com. Meat, not milk. Meat is the tougher to digest spiritual concepts. Milk is what you get on Sundays at church or in Sunday school. That's milk, right? And where we're going now and what it's time is for you to be able to digest meat. Couldn't give my daughter steak when she was 3, right? She couldn't digest it. And so there are some people who are still on milk. But if you are ready to elevate to meat, to be able to decode these parables, these allegories, these metaphors, these similes, the kingdom of God is like, then it is time for you to step up to meat. Right. And so go to meatnotmilk.com. Again, that's meatnotmilk.com to get informed about when I go live. We will start to do these readings more consistently soon. But right now, I'm doing it when I'm inspired by God. All right. So I wish you all the best. Have a great day. Go be God. Go be God. That is the highest calling for us all, is go be God. Allow God to use you today, not only for your own life, but to help bless others. I will see you again soon. Stay in touch. Again, that's meatnotmilk.com. Talk to you soon. Peace.